Good morning and welcome to the Rise and Thrive Chronicles. And today I'm happy to talk with Dr. Richard Newkirk of Ivanhoe, North Carolina. We want our audience to hear about the doctor who's born and raised in the South, who's traveled all over the place and a wealth of experience through adversities and ascended the ladder of success despite oppositions. So welcome, Dr. Newkirk, to the Rise and Thrive Chronicles broadcast. How are you today?
I'm doing extremely well, and I'm grateful and thankful to you, Mr. Brian Barrett, the awesome young man. So glad to have this privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to ask you some questions. How did you become the person that you are today? Growing up, what were some of the significant social and cultural changes that you witnessed that helped shape your life?
Well, first of all, I was born in 1948. Okay, I'll tell you that right up front. I have no problem with that. Which means that I started first grade in 1953 at a four-room school. It was called Halfway Branch Elementary School. What I need to remind you of is that I went to school from grades 1 all the way through high school, doing what is known as the separate but equal time in the South, and that was the way it was. Blacks went to school one place and whites went someplace else. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned, Halfway Branch we had grades 1 through 8. You had first and second grade with one teacher, third and fourth with another one, fifth and sixth, and seventh and eighth. So we had 4 teachers, and each teacher taught 2 grades. And we at Halfway Branch at the time, we had coal to heat. We had outdoor bathrooms. That means we call them outhouses. There was no such thing as a PE. Everybody who went to school where I went was, we grew up in the farm, and so we worked. So as far as PE and organized sports, none of that took place. In 1957, I think it was, they built another school that was called West Pender, and we started there when I was in 6th grade, which would be in 1958. And that school was the first brick school, first school that we had where we had running water, we had bathrooms and all of that. And that school was a result of a combination of Halfway Branch, of Curry Colored School, of King Tuck, Clear Branch, and Atkinson, all coming together. And all those Halfway Branch that I went was the largest. It was 4-room school. Some of the other ones went from grades 1 through 7, or some of them just had maybe 1 through 6. But there were 2 high schools in Pender County that African Americans, we would call colored back in those days, could attend. One of them was C.F. Pope High School, which is in Burgaw. The building is now C.F. Pope Elementary. And the other one was Pender County Training School, which is in Rocky Point. So those were the 2 schools that we could go to. One of the things that was very, very prevalent throughout Pender County and other places, you would see the signs that says colored and white. What that means is that we knew that we were, quote, colored, and there were places that we could go in the public. There were things that we could do, things we could not do. For example, downtown Burgaw, where the Pender Arts Council is now, that was Dee's drugstore back in the day. I think there was no place in Pender County, to my knowledge, that as I recall, that you could go in and sit down and eat. No place. There was no place that we could go and go to the bathroom, including the bus station. The brick building that's at the corner of Fremont and Walker Street was the Greyhound bus place station back in those days. And on the public bus places like that, we had to ride to the back of the bus. I experienced that firsthand. I didn't just read about it.
Wow.
Even when the doctor's office, for example, we could not go to the doctor's office and make an appointment. We had to go, you go in, go to the left, which was the colored section, and sit. White people could make an appointment, and we would go and sit, and we knew if you were going to the doctor, that typically it was going to be an all-day affair, because you're going to sit until they've worked you in. And that was my experience, even when I graduated from college, getting ready to go to grad school in 1969, okay? So
Wow.
now all of this was lawful and legal. And I'll mention, and many people are not familiar with what went on in Wilmington in 1898, but it all goes back to that when there was a coup. And it has to do with people's rights. So all of this was done lawfully and legally. And I share with folks, that's why it's important that you know your rights as a citizen, that you need to be involved in government at the local level and vote, because that's what took place, is they put people in positions that would do what they wanted to do. You often think about Supreme Court decision in 1955, where you have Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, and we think, well, it said that segregation violated the 14th Amendment. Okay, but the court did not declare a timeline for integration. They only said that states should do it with all deliberate speed. So that kind of language, particularly in North Carolina, where you had segregation in this, it gave them the privilege of the opportunity as to do what they did, which is 1956. When we had Hodges, he unveiled what's called the Pearsall Plan. And I share with that so that you understand the background of what was going on. The Pearsall Plan says that local communities had the permission, lawfully and legally, to close local schools if they were ordered to integrate by the federal government. Okay, and so you got to understand that. Okay, and that's what happened. And so they actually had a vote in 56, in November 56, in the state of North Carolina to amend the Constitution to do that. And it passed by more than 75%. So all that's part of the background. So as we think in 2024 about what was happening and what you wouldn't do, things were totally different, and it was all lawful and legal.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I could go on and talk for another 10 or 15 minutes, but is that enough? That's part of the environment. So it wasn't important that Blacks go to school, okay? When we went to school, we knew it was a privilege, not a right. And when I talk about schools and things today, I share with folks, first of all, that we were told even that you're Black, gonna be Black all your life. Those weren't necessarily the terms that were used, where you may have to know twice as much to get the same job for half the pay. Our teachers would tell us this in grades 1 up. You got two choices. One is you can complain about it, or you can learn the system. We're here to teach you. We're not here to listen to your complaints. So many people think about, and when they think about segregation, they look at what we did not have, but they do not know what we had and what we were taught. So we were taught, okay, this is who they say you are. Life's not fair. They're not going to value you. But we need to teach you who you are. We need to teach you to learn the system. Okay? So as far as having a conversation about this is not fair, wasn't part of our vocabulary. We already knew it was fair. Okay? So you don't focus on how you feel about stuff. You focus on, what do I need to do to learn to move to the next level and be able to affect the system. So that was the mindset that was taught at home. It was taught in church. It was taught in the community. There was there was not the school versus the parents. There was unity in reference to the beliefs and what was done.
I see. So tell me about your dreams and your vision to attend college. Did you was that also something that was passed on to everybody, or just um, how did people feel about, being in that situation, and now you're faced with, okay, once you get out of school, is that it, or what inspired you to go further?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I share with people that a major motivating factor was that I was taught to read. I was introduced to a book. So while there was a lot of things we could not do, when you read, you could see things and find out what existed aside from what people just told you where you couldn't go. So by the time before I got to high school, because also in our churches, and CF Pope was begun, was actually founded by the Middle District, and it was initially started as a place to teach pastors, teach ministers, and so education was always stressed. Even when you look at the documentary about my mom, her grandmother who could not read, they stressed being able to read and education. If you go back into the history of the Blacks, if you even go back with the narratives of oh God, I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, you will find that that was important, because when you read, you could find out, you can go to original source, and you didn't just have to take somebody else's word. And when you got to take somebody else's word for something you can't find out for yourself, you're controlled, you're limited. And many people don't understand that even today. So they don't, even when they go to the internet and all this stuff, they don't know how to differentiate between truth and fact. Fact is what you may know, but truth does not change. And so many people don't know the difference between that. They don't even know how to go to original sources.
Okay.
So the churches focused at that time, because I grew up in the Baptist church, Shaw University was the school that we supported. And so we always had people who would talk to us, who had gone and they'd come back and share. We even have a lady from our community who went in the military. She went overseas, places like Africa, and she'd come back and she'd show us film and movies of different people and their things. So we were exposed to a whole lots of things. So by the time I got in, before I got to high school, I understood what college was about, what you would need to do in order to go to college. And part of the other motivation is you worked every day in farm. Okay. And I've worked from sun up to sundown. I worked from daybreak in the rain until we got through. So I worked outside in the weather, and that was motivation to me that unless I did something differently, this was going to be my plight. And I wasn't excited about that, since I had been exposed and I knew some other kind of things could happen. And we've been told, okay, there's other stuff that can happen, but here's what you need to do. So that was good motivation for me.
Okay, so you've done that, you've heard, you've seen things, but it's a little bit different once you get out there. So can you share some of your personal challenges that you had to overcome while you were working your way up through the education system outside of your area? Because you know everybody there and you've seen all this information. Now you have to go out there and prove yourself.
The very first big experience I would think that was the most challenging was when I went to graduate school. And I say that because from first grade all the way through graduate school, I was in an environment that was almost 99% Black. So our teachers from first grade all the way through where I was in college, undergrad school, North Carolina A&T, they didn't take junk. They had high standards, and they expected to. So people didn't listen to none of your excuses. Okay, and they shared with you, here's who you are. Again, people are not going to appreciate you. They're not going to value you. Here's how they're going to look at you. But here's what you need to do. And we were taught high level critical thinking. And I am appreciating my foundation. The older I get, the more experience. So in graduate school, I remember, first of all, I was one of 3 Black students in the program that I was in. So I'd never been in an environment where I was the minority in school. Okay? It's different. Okay? Growing up, before we knew we were Black, but we were told everything was done to help us. And the color of our skin was never a problem. Okay? In school, because all of us were Black. Okay? It was a safe environment for learning. We were safe. You could ask questions, you could do stuff, and it was nurturing as well as challenging. Well, I think in grad school, and as I look back, I remember people looking at my writing. They want to know, did you write that? I'm like, yes. And when I look back, I was wondering, why would you wonder whether or not I wrote that? But when I look back, they'd been exposed, they had a certain mindset about us. And while I had been told that I was looked at differently, I had never had to deal with that in an academic situation. So that was, okay. It didn't change what I did. I had another experience in grad school where I was assigned, part of my assignment was to go to a lecture on why Blacks could not speak good English. And I'm the only Black person in my class.
Wow.
And the guy, I don't remember if he was working on his master's, he was working on his PhD, but he'd gone to East St. Louis, Illinois, and done his research. My entire life being from the time I was born till was the antithesis to his thesis. But once I got back to class, there was nothing I could say. This is the mindset, this is what he had been taught. And so I was talked at, but nobody talked to me about it. Because what he had shared, when I look back, was the mindset that they already had, okay? And who was I to be able to say anything? But so I had to walk that out. Okay, so I've had to walk out and experience how other folks looked at me. As a matter of fact, in grad school, that particular term, I got a failing grade. I had never had a failing grade in my life in anything. Okay, nothing. And I came to find out that I had A's in all my other classes. Okay, and I had some of my professors thought I was going to leave grad school. It never crossed my mind. I hadn't been taught to quit. Okay, they told me, here's what you need to do. You need to go talk to the professor, come back and tell us what you did. So I did go talk to him, and I remember his name. I won't call it. I do remember him saying to me, Mr. Newkirk, you don't appear to be a dumb boy. I heard nothing else he said because that was his perspective. That's how he saw me. I'm in grad school, okay? So I went back and shared. They told me no problem. They did a letter. They did a letter for me to take the class over onto somebody else. It's in my records today. So I know this is how people see you, but you still need to keep moving. It prepared me for when I got into the United States Air Force as on active duty. When I got there, they told me, you're a Black officer number so-and-so. So I have had to walk out that perspective. But my foundation of knowing who I am and what I need to do has helped me. So I had a foundation that helped me. And I went to grad school there because the chairman of my English department told me, here's where you need to go. I wasn't going there, I was going to Rutgers. But he said, you need to go, and this is what you need to do. What was he telling me? Here is the world. Here's
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to have to act, and you need to be prepared. We prepared you, but you need to be able to walk it out.
Mm-hmm.
I also taught in the school in California, 7th and 8th grade. That's what it was when I initially got there. They have 1,000 7th and 8th graders. I was the first and only Black teacher to teach that. They had never, ever had a Black teacher in the
Wow.
school. And there were about four or five Black students in the school. Marysville, Yuba City is where it was. And back in the day, I found out that you couldn't, if you were Black, you should not be in Yuba City after dark.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the environment. So it's helped me to deal with reality.
Mm-hmm.
Goes
Mm-hmm.
back to my foundation. This is who you are. Many times kids do not know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they think that well, this is integration. That was back in the day. You don't have problems, but that's not reality. So if you think nothing is different, it doesn't make a difference if you're Black or white. It does make a difference, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to know that. Doesn't mean that everybody hates you. I tell folks when I grew up, things were black and white. Okay, but because a white person didn't like Blacks didn't mean that they didn't like you. It was
Mm-hmm.
about relationships, okay? They may know, oh, you're Chuck Newkirk's son or grandson, or you this family. But you
Mm-hmm.
still knew what you need to do and how what you need to do in order to move to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And all things are not always black and white, but if you have if you've been taught principles and how to be able to operate in those principles, aside from just responding emotionally, you'll be successful because I
Mm-hmm.
tell folks all the time, emotions are like roller coasters, they change, but
Mm-hmm.
they cause change.
Mm-hmm.
Actions cause change, and you got to understand the system, you got to understand the principles, and you can't do that unless you are calm and be able to learn how to be able to make change from the inside out.
Let me ask you this. So, yeah, I mean, you've got some life experiences, you've seen some things, you build a foundation. First of all, you know, things like segregation, all those things are not really being taught today. So today's students, especially Black Americans, have no idea. I remember being in a classroom and kind of introducing the ideas to them, which it kind of blew off because I felt that they were taking their education for granted and not really working hard. And so I stayed on them about that. And to the point that they graduated, but I don't actually know what they did after that. But using your life experiences, especially now with the generation and all of the distractions and social media, how do you help younger generations now to set goals and achieve success?
Good question. The challenging question. Uh, One of the things that I believe is important is first of all, you got to build relationships. Many times there's the mindset that if you're you're old-fashioned, you're fogey, and nothing is relevant. And so many times it's easy for the elder, the older, to judge, to critique, and talk about what you're not doing.
Mm,
Well, but oftentimes we don't sit down at the right time and be able to share, ask questions. Well, why are you doing this way? As the children are growing up, explain to them what we did. There's so many times you can ask. I remember asking some questions and people tell you, and they'll say, well, you do it because I say so, or I don't know. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing. But what it is important is that I want to invest in you and I want to help you. I was in the meetings recently and I heard somebody say, well, I can't help them. But they didn't stop there. They connected with somebody else. And so oftentimes we don't connect with anybody. We don't know
mm,
what to do. We don't know how to be able to get somebody else involved. And all that was part of what happened when I grew up. Everybody was involved. You were being invested in, okay? There's a tremendous difference between discipline and punishment,
mhm,
okay? Punishment means is I'm trying to make you understand something and you didn't get it, so I'm gonna make sure that you hurt. It's not teaching. Discipline is training. Let me give you an example. When I was growing up, I remember I could be told, well, here's what you need to do. And if you don't do it, there were consequences. That could be, you couldn't go someplace, it may be a whipping or whatever. One of the things that many, quote, adults, I should say older people do who are in the position, is we do not follow through with what we say. So what we teach kids, younger kids, is that there's no consequences. I don't have to listen. I don't have to pay attention because there are no consequences. And that's a lie. And what I'm really teaching them, sometimes I say, well, you don't have to follow anybody, that's the teacher. So it creates, we are not working in collaboration or in unity. I'm teaching you, you don't have to believe me because I'm your parent. Well, when I do that, and you grew up and found out I'm wrong, I really taught you that you need to question everybody. So that means there's no respect for me, there's no respect for authority. And if I don't have a respect for anybody, that means I have no boundaries and I have no foundation because there's no consequences. And then kids begin to find out, well, you were my parent, you told me you loved me, but you lied to me. So is everybody lying to me? And by the time they go through school and they find out, I really am not prepared to deal with life. And I thought you loved me, but I have no tools. And so there's anger. And that anger is expressed in a whole lots of ways. So what we are seeing from my perspective is the realization of kids who've gotten out of high school and are still in school that you really don't care about me. You're not trying to help me. I'm nobody. So they have no value, there's no safety, there's no respect. And we as adults are responsible for that. And we need to do our job, okay? This is part of what you're doing, you shared, okay? There's a book by Ralph Ellison titled Invisible Man. Mm-hmm. That, okay, you may have heard it. And I talk about it oftentimes. And it's titled Invisible because the character who's called the protagonist is invisible, okay? He's not seen. But there is a small scene in the prologue where grandfather is dying, and grandfather is portrayed as what many people think is an Uncle Tom. He seems to be just calm, and he makes no difference to anybody. But he calls his children in because he's getting ready to die, and he tells them, he says, I have been a traitor in the enemy's territory. He said, you need to overcome them with yes sirs and no sirs until they vomit you up. And his children do not understand him because they think he has lost his mind. And he's telling them, you need to teach it to the young ones. Well, they don't understand it, don't ask, and they've never paid attention to what was going on because and so they rush the kids out. Well, that's foundational. And I ask people, okay, so grandfather is teaching them, this is how I have survived. I know who I am. I know what I needed to do in order to move in this world. And I'm trying to make sure I pass it on. But what happens is they reject it. When you look at the entire book, Invisible Man, what the protagonist does is everything that has been traditional, everything that the elderly teach him, they reject. And at the end of the book, he is in a basement with light. He knows who he's not, has no clue who he is. That's where we are. Our kids don't know who they are because we haven't taught them.
Appreciate your passion about it. It's a monumental task and trying to change things. Do you have any projects going on here lately that I can share with the audience?
Yes. As a matter of fact, today We're doing I think the 1865 group are showing a documentary that's called Carrie Mae, An American Life. That's my mom, and she talks about when she grew up, and she ended up being one of the first Black teachers to be sent against her will to a white school in Pender County. And she talks about all of that, about being in there and what happens. And that's key. Claudia, who's a dear friend of mine who passed about a little over a month or so ago, the last documentary we did is called Lessons Learned from the Rosenwald School, and we talk about principles that were taught in the schools that were effective then and they work now. So our goal is that there are things that we can do. Okay, I always share with folks, we need as adults, we need to spend time with kids. We need to spend time with people in all the school systems. We need to be involved in them. We don't need to just go to school when something's wrong and be involved only when our kid is involved in sports. We need to be involved with our kids. We need to know what's going on in the schools. In Pender County, for example, they still have Power School. Okay, Power School gets every teacher, and every parent or persons who are in charge of that opportunity to find out their attendance on a daily basis, class by class. You get to find out their grades, homework, all of those kinds of things. And we're used to just popping in schools, but it gives you a way that you can communicate with the teachers. We don't have teachers who are from our community. They don't know us, they're not going to come out. So there are some things we have to do. We need to learn how to communicate with them. Okay, every school in Pender County also has a page on their website that will tell us, okay, here's what's going on. So we need to be involved. And we can do that. Sometimes we just need to walk through the campus to show up, aside from football and basketball and soccer. Okay, we'll do that.
Yes,
but
we will.
Need to be involved in the school, in the kids. It's ours. That's what happened in when I grew up. Our parents were in the schools. Okay, we knew when we went to West Pender. The teachers didn't. They didn't come out on playground time. We did when we were on lunch hours. We monitor our halls. You didn't have trash in our bathroom. The school was ours. We possessed it. We believed in it. It was ours, and we were proud of it. Okay?
Okay. So let me ask you this one last question about, we talked about things that keep you going and all the things that you have been through. What would you say is your life motto? What keeps you going?
Aside to know that it's in Him that I live and move and have my being, that I have purpose. And I know what my purpose is. Okay? You should always be able to give back. And you can't give back if you don't. We always giving, but what we give may not help. Okay, but if I don't know who I am, what I'm going to pass off is that, and I'll teach you that it's not possible for you to know who you are. That's a lie. It is possible. You have purpose. You're not here by accident.
That's true.
You are here on purpose, and after you get here, I don't care how you came, through whom you could, and all the stuff that happened to you in life that you had no control over, where you go from here on is on you. You have choices, you have responsibilities, and you can make a difference, but you need to prepare yourself. I don't care how many times you fall down. If you fall down 50 times, you need to get up 51. We look at what does not happen. You need to look at the hand that was reached out to you. You need to look at what happened positive. Okay? I share with people, how do you get rid of darkness? You don't talk about darkness. You turn on the light. You need to
Mm-hmm.
be. You need to get in light. You need to turn on the light. You need to shine light. You need to be light. So
So
you need
that,
to change how you think, and you need to, when you change how you think, you're going to change what you speak. And when I grew up, there was three different languages. There was things that you could talk about. I could talk, okay. Then you begin to learn how to write, but to affect your writing, you read. If you wherever you were going, you had to read about that. So you're always moving from where you are to where things are at, okay, to where I want to go. So if you go into Florida, what do? You find out what Florida's like. Where you going there? What do you need to take? How long you going to be there? What you plan to do? That's planning. You do it, okay? People
mhm,
do that in reference to sports sometimes. But that's a life. You need to do that in every area of your life.
mhm. So I was looking at some of your quotes from Facebook. I did some research on you, and that's one of them. To get rid of darkness, turn on the light. Run in your own lane. A rolling stone gathers no moss.
That's correct.
And
And let me talk about that one. For Rolling, and you'll find that also in Invisible Man. It's and the quote that he has there is keep this nigga boy running. If
mhm,
you're running in a circle, you have no idea about foundations. You're going round and round in circles. And if you're just running and running and running, you don't know why you're running. You don't even know what's going on. There is what's lawful and what's written, and then there is another system. If you don't be still someplace, you just talking about what's going on, but do you know the history? Do you know why it happened?
mhm,
Because if you don't know why it happened, you just upset with and ready to throw it out. You may be doing the same thing over and over, and you just don't know it because you didn't dig deep enough. You didn't do, and what are you doing? You're running in a circle,
mhm, mhm,
and you think something is new. No, it just looks different. That's all.
mhm. Well, Dr. Newkirk, I had an uncle, he passed away about 10 years ago, but he used to talk about the Wilmington location for those in the audience who are not actually from Wilmington. The Pender County's in North Carolina as well, but he used to talk, he knew everything. He had pictures, he had clippings, and he would talk about it, and I would just come over on Sunday afternoons and just listen to him explain the things he went through and how he made it. And it's such a valuable resource. I hope people who will listen to you, because I see you all over the place. You're at USCW today. You're at Penn Library. You're doing what you can in your area, and we sure appreciate you being a trailblazer.
There is a documentary titled "The Wilmington 10 Pardons of Innocence" that talks about that, and it's still being shown. As a matter of fact, it's going to be shown at let's see, today is February the
10,
the
10.
the 16th, February the 16th, and all of these at 6 o'clock at Mount Moriah AME Church is in Rocky Point. I think that's on 210. And at February the 23rd at Willett Outreach Center, which is in Willett, and that's on Highway 11, I think it is.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah. Powerful, gives you some history, gives some
mhm,
understanding about what's going on about mindset. And a lot of people didn't share, don't share oftentimes because they have been traumatized and that's never been dealt with. And people who talked back in the day were killed
mhm,
or
mhm,
run away. And
mhm,
some people still don't talk because they haven't understood that it's safe. And if you're
mhm,
still talking, nobody listens to you, you become invisible. You're like, why do I need to waste my time? But we need
mhm,
to share with our kids. We
mhm,
need to share so you'll understand you're valuable, you're important, you're brilliant.
mhm,
You can and will make a difference.
mhm. All right, Dr. Newkirk, was there anything that you thought, man, maybe he should have asked me this question? Is there anything you thought that you like to bring up that I would probably didn't mention or just came to your mind that you want to share with the listeners on the podcast?
Pender County has a lot of history. You look at Pender Lee, you look at Burga, uh, Wilmington at the time was the top, was the biggest city in North Carolina back in the 1918. Okay, it's the only port place that, so this part of Pender County, North Carolina was, even in the midst of all that was going on, was I think about 12th or 13th in the industrial states in the United States.
Hmm. Wow.
And education, even when I was in school, was really, really, really high. I tell folks I graduated with a bachelor's in English from North Carolina A&T. I majored in English. I didn't minor. Okay. I have a lifetime teaching credential. I went to California and I started teaching there about in 1976. I have a lifetime teaching credential from that. They don't give those anymore, to teach language arts, social studies from grades 7 through 12 because of the standards that were held where I went to school, North Carolina A&T. So we were taught. We knew we had to learn. My mom used to tell me, we look at grades, but they were told, I don't care what your grades are, you better get it. You have to possess it. And we need to learn how to possess it. Mine is still a terrible thing to waste. So you need to get it and know that it's ours, and then we can operate it. Thank you.
You know, one thing that kind of disturbs me is that when you have the different events, parents come, older generations come, but I don't see a lot of youth coming. And those are the individuals who really need to be there. And so hopefully they'll begin to show up, that the parents will make this a thing that, hey, come hear about, what things used to be like. And I think that's part of the making the changes, is parents bring their kids to these different events so they can hear what history was like firsthand. It's not being taught in school.
You're 100% correct. That is part of the process. One of our goals, and one of the things we're trying to do, is that we want to see it in schools, and we're working on trying to be able to do that. That's one of the reasons we focus on the libraries and those kind of things. Pender County Library, for example, has things that are tied to all the schools in Pender County. So we're trying to do things and be able to make those connections. It's the process, and it's taking time, but I'm excited about what's going on. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, sir, for being on the Rise and Thrive podcast. And I'll put some information about you, your bio, and anything that you have going on, books, and the great work you're doing throughout the area of Pender County, North Carolina, and New Hanover County, and probably more counties as well, who will come on board once they see what you're doing and the success that you're having, because it works. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.